All right, so now we have a few elements. We're gonna go into design evolution. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna grab a few of these elements and get rid of, just copy them into a new project. So this may not be you'll probably build on the one that you have, but this is just so I can kind of get started, get things oriented. Then what I'm really trying to do here is to allow myself a clean canvas. If I had context, I would start there. So you guys will have context, and you'll drive it from that model that I provided to you. But to give you a little idea of where we're heading, I'm just going to reference this simple project, this diagram, series of diagrams by Big. Their architecture firm does a great job about really thinking through the architectural intent through these a series of diagrams. They're really great at actually documenting that process. And so we can use that as a reference here. Realizing that this is the entire building, I get it. And sometimes the big move is an entire building, but sometimes, in your case, it can be an internal big idea. So we start with a site, move to a simple form that then gets a little bit more complex, starts turning, and eventually it starts to take into all the things to account, like where's the sun at? Where are the major views that we want to accentuate? What are the outdoor spaces? And then finally kind of gives us, at least at a diagrammatic level, an idea of how we occupy the building. So again, this is just about an evolution of the design intent. And that's kind of what I'm wanting you guys to do for your project. All right, so let's get started. So again, the things that I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you technique, but exactly what I'm doing isn't going to be what you're doing. Just sit back and relax. Maybe put this on, 150% speed. So I'm going to go to massing the site because what I want to start with in my own concept for this thing is just a simple kind of box. So I'm just going to start there. I'm going to model using the massing and site massing tools. And I'm just going to create the base of the footprint of the project. So, every project has to start somewhere. For you, you have context, but there's certain massing inside of that box or inside of that container that you need to fulfill, right? Point of sale, back of house, meeting room, some kind of vertical circulation piece. So those things are the things that you're going to want to bring into your concept without getting too detailed. So here I'm just creating simple mass at a certain height that I think is correct for this project. And my first kind of take might be almost that simple. So I'm going to assign it a color. I want every mass to be very simple. So I've kind of created, I'm going to use shaded. I've assigned it a white diagram color. I'm going to use a certain smooth lines and anti-aliasing. I'm going to give the light the 70-50 20 rule that we've talked about in the past. I'm going to turn on the shadows. There we go. At least the ambient shadows. I'm going to give it the silhouette wide lines. So I want to kind of really make kind of the illustrated quality of it pop. Okay, you can start to see kind of how that's working right now. So I want this to be a series. Now I can see you guys may want to kind of model yours in one place, and in that case, I would use a view and hide elements that you don't want to be part of that view. So if you want to just leave it all in one location, that's fine. You just create a series of 3D views that have only the elements you want to show for each slide. So if you have evolution 1, you would have that. If you have evolution 2, you'd have that. And hide in the various elements as they are no longer valid. So in this case, I'm going to show a series, so I'm just going to take that mass. I'm creating some model lines so I know exactly how far each one is. So as I need to copy and paste, I can. And so that kind of creates this grid that's pretty simple grid that I can use and work from. And you have to figure out kind of what view is right. It looks like I'm a little off on some of my modeling, so I'm just going to straighten that up, get that to be a pure box. That looks right. All right, now I can copy and paste. So it's really kind of up to you how you want to work. If you want to follow kind of along what I'm doing here, or like I said, if you want to just capture different views and basically hide elements according to which of the design intents you're working on at that moment. So here, because this is an entire building, I'm really worried about water. How is it going to be, move off of this called a house? So I think that a pure like shed roof is kind of the nature of what I want to do. So now how do I describe that, not just kind of visually, but then add in some infographics that want to be on. So I'm going to use the working planes so that I can pick different directions that this arrow that I've built before can rest at. So now I just need to kind of move it up and in place so that whether it looks pretty obvious, oh yeah, well, of course it's, I've moved the one end of the roof down. Yeah, but the whole point is that you kind of make this as consumable as possible and don't assume anything. You want then it to be very clear of kind of what your process is. And you would then use that kind of 1 sentence, 2 sentences of description just to kind of, again, make it brutally simple and to understand kind of what your thought process is. So now I want to start thinking about, well, I'm going to start to morph this massing even further, and what are the kind of the next steps in that process. So for me, it's going to be to create a void within that within this project. So I'm just going to go in and start to draw. Oh, I have the wrong working plane. I want to fix that. So just make sure that I have a plan-oriented working plane. Then I can draw the correct void, at least the footprint of that void. So I hit the void. Now I have this mass that I need to correct its size. And then now we can start to talk about the next level. So I want this to be pushed in. I can start to edit that void, the way we've talked about before. And then let's start to add then the final kind of infographics that again make it brutally simple to understand. Oh, I had the copy on, so I need to get rid of. Okay. I know that your kind of morphological language, you got to kind of come up with your thoughts, but typically, we can find analogies sometimes. Sometimes that's beneficial, but oftentimes it really has to do with some more simple ideas of how you see, the project, just the use of it, the program, the kind of end user. It doesn't have anything to do with some bigger overarching idea. That's fine. These errors can be a little bit tricky to mess with, but I think in the end they're actually working pretty well. I just decided that this needs to be oriented differently for it to kind of feel kind of right. Okay, so for my process now, I wanted to kind of move this over and start a new set. So I'm using the filter to get rid of, all other extraneous lines. So at a certain point, I'm going to have another mass inside of this void. So I want to start showing that. So whether or not you add it to the mass that you already had or you create a new mass is probably just a kind of your call. So most of this video seems like I'm just kind of playing around with my own conceptual ideas, but I don't know. For me, I think it's helpful sometimes to see how a designer uses the tool and starts to think about that tool, because it just gives you an insight of of how you, at least one way that you could use to kind of think about rationalizing your ideas and using the digital tools to kind of help bring them to life. So is this the only way? No, absolutely. There's others that kind of work in a different mode. But I would say for me, this works really well because I'm able to flesh out an architectural scheme really relatively quickly, and kind of really have a good direction of where I'm heading, what is going to fit within the program, what isn't. So here I'm gonna, at the end, we're gonna start to make sure that I have the material applied. So again, you have these kind of basic materials. I'm using white for the most part until I start to maybe add color here soon to articulate a really, finer point. So if you want to put a person in, there's some very basic persons, or if you want to put a vehicle in your project, I mean, that all depends. For me, it's going to be important because I'm showing perhaps a carport or a garage or something like that. So I would doubt you'd have a lot of entourage except for maybe some people in your diagrams, but the people can be a very useful tool to kind of really kind of understand scale in your projects. So that could be a very useful tool. So I'm just bringing in some very simple entourage. You can see the car's not really made of much, just a simple skin, but that immediately starts to identify that portion of the project. So I might now start to think about, okay, maybe I need to load a person. I would say that these people are not going to be great. They're great in a rendered mode, but they're really basic. I mean, just really basic. But they do at least give some scale. So I definitely think that it's worth putting in. So let's start to kind of look at whether the other parts of the skin of this concept. So I'm going to go in and I'm making this diagram exterior wall. So at this point in the process of my design intent, I'm wanting to start to give a little bit more articulation of how I see the project actually evolving. So, in this case, I'm just going to start to look at kind of where the inside and outside barrier is located. Again, I get it. You guys have an existing structure. This isn't your problem, but I think it's, this again is just about showing a process, not showing exactly what you're going to do with it. So I'd like to attach this to that model, but it's giving me some errors in doing that. So I'm just going to bring it down to 8 feet. Apparently the walls can't be attached to massing in this way. If I gave one of the, if I assigned an actual architectural element to one of those surfaces, like wall by face or roof by face or ceiling by face, then I think I could have done that, but I wasn't able to achieve it. So now I'm going to bring in the basic idea of exterior trees and shading to kind of start to understand kind of how I'm going to deal with large windows. This won't be the full fleshed out version of what I'm going to do, but the idea that it's on the south and I need to kind of make sure I'm thinking about that. I don't think it's as easy for you guys because of you're dealing with let me get this working plane to be correct. See that it was rotated because our project's rotated. So for you guys in Arizona, you have those kind of trees, but they're not going to really provide a lot of shade. So I think you definitely have more work than perhaps this simple diagram I'm creating is making it look. So now we kind of see, articulation of that. The roof overhang is another kind of thought process to kind of keep it shaded. The trees are a way to keep it shaded. So we're really starting to kind of flesh out what's inside, what's outside, what's kind of beginning to look at, where the car place and all of that. So again, pretty simple, but clearly now I have the massing intent clearly stated. And using this massing site modeling techniques, I can really flexible way of modeling, which I really like. It's one of the best tools for creating in Revit. And then I'll do the next two, and then I think in another video here. So one thing that I didn't really get into is, I talked a bit about like the reason that this is a shed roof, but I may want to kind of give a little bit better explanation graphically, because that's a big idea actually. So I'm just going to copy this arrow and go in and give it a new working plane. Make sure it can be seen. Then we're going to change its color. I'm just going to duplicate this color and change it to, in this case, we're going to call it a blue. I'm going to change both of these so that really the appearance doesn't matter if I'm in shaded or not shaded. So and then let's just add a finer point to this. Okay, so that's pretty good. This is a good start to my design intent evolution. And all right.